Hi everyone. Welcome to Secrets Behind the Stars. Settle in, because tonight's tale begins where every heartbeat in showbiz seems to quicken, on a red carpet that glittered like a river of light, flowing straight into a night Riyadh will not forget. The prestigious awards ceremony, famous for its aura of mystery and magnificence, opened its doors to the world once more, and from the first camera flash to the last lingering applause, the air was thick with suspense. You could feel the collective anticipation tightening like a silk ribbon as the most beloved names of the industry arrived one by one, each framed by a constellation of shutter clicks and hopeful whispers from every corner of the hall. From the edge of that velvet walkway, one figure drew the light as if it had been waiting for her, Tuba by custom. Calm, composed, luminous. Even before she spoke, she carried that poised serenity that makes everyone lean in without realizing they have. She has always stayed above the noise, guarded with her words, selective with the glimpses she offers into her thoughts. But tonight was different. Tonight, the distance she ordinarily keeps from the world of chatter seemed to float away like a veil caught by a warm wind. And that, dear listeners, is where our story sharpens into focus. She paused beneath the sweep of the spotlights, smiled at a reporter's greeting, and said she was thrilled to be among so many Turkish stars shining on an international stage. There was a quiet warmth to the way she phrased it, the sort of warmth you don't rehearse, a warmth that makes even the crew in the back row stand a little straighter. The questions came quickly, as they always do in that sudden moment before the ceremony's curtain rises. But when a name surfaced, a name that lit up the night as if someone had flicked on a hidden chandelier, her smile changed. A little brighter, a little more knowing. That name was Barış Arduç. It wasn't just professional respect you could hear in her voice. It was the sound of long years spent watching a colleague carve out a space in the world with patience and discipline, a sound like the hum of an engine that never once sputtered in the climb. Tuba spoke of Barış's diligence the way an artist talks about quiet craft, reminding everyone that the glamour is the top of the iceberg, and the rest is work nobody sees. She has watched that work from up close and from a distance, and tonight, she admitted what many in the industry feel but rarely say, that his commitment to the job has been relentless and graceful in the same breath. But then came the turn. The questions, inevitably, reached beyond the spotlight and into the life that waits behind it. And that is where Tuba's tone shifted again, turning not only candid but tender. She spoke about Elcin Sangu. Not as a footnote. Not as a name tethered to another. She spoke about Elcin as a force, quiet, steady, and unwavering, the kind of presence that calms storms before they begin. In her words, Elcin is not only the love of Barış's life, but his balance, his compass, the harmony that steadies the ship in foreign waters. The guests around her reacted the way people do when truth brushes by, soft but unmistakable. Heads tilted. Eyes narrowed into smiles. You heard small breaths being held. Tuba said that what the world sees of this couple is only a fraction of the story, and that in the pages we don't read, Elcin's serenity speaks louder than the applause. Her elegance, her quiet resolve, her gentle iron, those were the pivots that make a career look seamless even when the steps are steep, especially during the long nights far from home on international projects. And in that instant, the interview stopped being a routine warm-up to an awards show and became something else entirely. It's rare to witness that kind of unguarded admiration between peers. Rarer still to hear it voiced so openly by someone who treasures her privacy as fiercely as her craft. Yet there it was, a confession of respect that landed like a spotlight on a different stage, where public glances melt away and real life begins. Tuba didn't oversell or embellish. She simply pointed to the delicate architecture of a partnership many adore from the outside, reminding the room that behind every headline, there are two people making choices that keep them grounded. And the name that left its quiet mark alongside Barış's was, of course, Elcin's. As the ceremony unfolded, the strength of Turkish representation could be felt in every aisle and every ovation. It was as if the evening wanted to underline the fact that these artists don't just show up, they arrive with stories, friendships, and alliances that stretch across years and across borders. On the red carpet, smiles had that unspoken code old friends share. On stage, applause carried messages you could almost read. And in the corridors between, where perfume mixes with espresso and nerves, people kept circling back to what Tuba had said. Some called it the most heartfelt moment before the first award was even announced. When the interview hit social media, it traveled as if it had wings. Fans clipped it, translated it, posted it with captions full of gratitude for the sincerity of her words. They paused on the details. The way Tuba's expression softened at the mention of Barış, the reverent steadiness in her voice when she spoke of Elcin. People love a glamorous rumor, but they love an honest tribute even more. And that is what this was, a tribute to a couple whose chemistry has held the screen and whose private unity, it seems, holds the rest. By the time the last statuette had been raised, the night had turned into a tapestry of cheers, camera flashes, and footfalls echoing through corridors awash with gold light. But ask any insider what they remembered most, and you would hear the same answer ricochet from one velvet lounge to another, the calm clarity of a single testimony. Tuba would later say that the ceremony felt less like an invitation and more like a gathering of spirits from a dozen different worlds. She meant it. You could sense it in the way the stars mingled and in the way conversations lingered long after the music changed. And there was another echo. The idea that a bond like the one between Barış and Elcin can become its own kind of quiet power. Not loud, not dramatic, just entirely reliable, the way a lighthouse doesn't shout but still saves ships all the same. Tuba's words framed their partnership as something that doesn't need approval to glow. Something that glows because of the choices made when the cameras aren't there. In that framing, the night found its most compelling story, a love that steadies, a friendship that sustains, a collaboration that doesn't need to declare itself to be seen. Of course, the gossip world did what the gossip world does. Some asked whether this sudden openness from a famously reserved actress hinted at a new chapter in her own stance toward publicity. Others wondered if the elegance of her praise might stir new projects, new pairings, new hopes. But beneath the buzz, a quieter current carried the truth, that sincerity has a way of silencing cynicism, if only for a moment, and reminding everyone why they fell in love with stars in the first place. She also made a point that could have passed unnoticed if you didn't tune your ear to it. In international projects, the right kind of support is a multiplier. It is the phone call that steadies you before a daunting scene, the look across a crowded room that says go on, you've got this, the memory of a shared morning that steadies a long night. And in this context, Elcin's calm, poised certainty becomes more than admirable, it becomes functional. It becomes a part of the machinery behind success, visible only in the results it helps produce. You don't always see the gear, but you see the clock keep perfect time. It was around this thought that Tuba's interview crystallized. She spoke of watching Barış step into new territories and hold his ground, and of noting how consistently that equilibrium remained. You cannot fake that kind of balance for long, not in this world, not across continents and time zones and uprooted routines. Something else must be holding you. Something true. And so, when she said that the harmony between them could be felt even by strangers, it wasn't poetry for its own sake. It was a quietly delivered fact. Elsewhere in the building, the show rolled on with all the expected fireworks. But walking those long, polished hallways, you could catch slivers of conversation looping back to that moment before it all began. Editors made mental notes. PR teams exchanged guarded smiles. Old friends squeezed hands, the way people do when they recognize that a surface has cracked just enough to reveal the real metal underneath. For a few hours, structure and soul met in the same room, and the afterglow felt a little like closure and a little like a beginning. When the light softened and the crowd began to drift toward the exits, a hush settled on the venue for a heartbeat, as if it had inhaled deeper than usual and wasn't quite ready to exhale yet. The night would be remembered, of course, for the names etched into trophies and the images broadcast around the world. But it would also be remembered for the invisible applause, the applause meant for a certain kind of love. A love that doesn't need to perform to be persuasive. A love that makes the hard look easy. And to the die-hard fans who'd been refreshing their feeds, looking for a flicker of authenticity among the glitter, the clip of Tuba speaking landed like a promise kept. She didn't need headlines to amplify her message, the tone did it for her. In that small circle of cameras, before the formalities, she had pressed gently on the heartbeat of the evening and shown everyone it was steady. So here we are, wrapping up a story that began in sequins and ended in sincerity. If you were there, you felt it. If you weren't, you still have the echoes, a smile at the mention of Bari's Arctic, a luminous tribute to Elcin Sangu, a reminder that behind the crafted image there is a sturdy, living weave that doesn't tear when the wind rises. The world will talk, as it always does. There will be debates and guesses and dreamy headlines. But beneath all that, there is the plain, reliable truth that keeps real partnerships intact: respect, support, and a shared compass pointing to a future you build together, one decision at a time. Tonight, the glamour bowed to that truth. And you can be sure the conversations will continue. Across tables, across timelines, across the hushed corridors of every set where someone needs a word of courage before stepping into light. Because that is how the best stories travel. Quietly. Steadily. With grace. And with that, we close the curtain on Riyadh's most talked about whisper. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe and share, because at Secrets Behind the Stars, we keep our ears close to the heartbeat of the night. Until next time, good night from us, and may your own whispers of hope carry you exactly where you need to go.